The Garner and Old Show, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. Vince, how are you today, my friend? Are you doing well?
I'm doing fine, Ryan. I hope you're doing well. I know it's not as cold down there in South Florida where you are, but it's been pretty frigid here.
It's felt good here. Like it got in the 40s last night, but then today I think the high here was like 68 degrees. It was beautiful weather, and that's how it goes in Tampa. We'll get a little low this Saturday. It'll be in the 30s, and then the high the next day is 72. So that's what we do here in Tampa.
That's right. So we got a big show tonight. We got a lot of things to talk about, and we've been pushing it all day today. And before we jump right into it and give some people a chance here to join the stream, I wanted to throw this up here. Ryan and I talk about this every week. This channel, this show is really rising, and it's going quickly. And we're getting close to the 1,000 subscriber mark. And that would be a big goal for us. So if you are not watching on YouTube, that's fine. You can watch wherever you want. We're everywhere. Podcast. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook or whatever. But if you do watch things on YouTube as well, do us a favor and go and subscribe to the channel there. That really helps us out a lot and gets this show out to more people. So we're getting really close, trying to get to the 1,000 mark.
Hey, everyone, drop some comments in the comment section. Let us know who's here tonight. And we're going to have Vince is going to announce a very special guest here in a minute. We've already announced it on the spaces and the Twitterverse. But we have a very special guest tonight to preserve his time because he has been making the rounds on a lot of shows and he's been answering a lot of questions. If you have a law-related question involving FSU versus ACC for our guest tonight, super chat only for him. Now, if you want to ask me and Vince something later on after he leaves, we'll be answering regular comments. But we want to try to keep the questions to our friend here about to join the show to super chats only, just to kind of limit how much time he's going to be here and has to answer some questions. So, Vince, go ahead. You want to introduce our friend here?
Yeah, he is well known now in the legal area of the ACC versus FSU, FSU versus the ACC. He is a diehard Knoll. He is a former marching chief, saxophone player extraordinaire, friend lawyer out of the Atlanta area, Doug Rohan. You've been on a bunch of shows, and I've watched them all. So welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me here. And it's a labor of love. You know, at the end of the day, I want to know what's going on. I'm reading this material because I want to be informed. And as an attorney talking to clients every day, I love educating my clients on what's happening and what's going on. So this has been a perfect marriage of two of my passions, Florida State and teaching the law and explaining the law. So I've really enjoyed it. It has been a really good time for me.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are very meticulous in your work, and I know that because as soon as I sent you the link to come on the show tonight, you sent me the homework. So I've got the homework ready to go here to throw up there whenever you're ready. But as everybody knows, the ACC pretty much, I will just kind of say this in my words, they realized what they originally filed wasn't so great, right? Because they tried to get it in ahead of the game, not really knowing what Florida State would file. So now this is kind of like their red pen. They fixed all their errors, or at least they filled it out a little bit more. This is no longer the rough draft. So tell us a little bit more about what that means, and then we can get into the detail about what it actually says.
Sure. So the North Carolina courts received from the ACC a new filing yesterday afternoon, and that was an amended complaint to their request for injunctive relief. What that means is they were changing or adding to their original complaint, and that's a very standard process. It happens all the time in litigation. You continue to investigate all the details as the discovery process and as the litigation goes forward. So sometimes you will reach and learn some new information. So you want to amend your complaint to ensure that the judge is looking at the full issues that you're addressing. Now, one of the things that's curious here, and the new word of the day for this filing, is an injunction or injunctive relief. So not only now are we dealing with the original claim of the grant of rights and wanting to know whether there's a declaration by the judge that it's valid or not, now they are enjoining or trying to enjoin or stop Florida State from participating in certain activities. They're asking the judge to say, look, you don't have to decide the ultimate issue yet, but as this litigation is going forward, please stop Florida State from sharing private information, sensitive information. Please stop Florida State from participating in any ongoing conference business. They clearly have a conflict of interest, and make sure that during the process, nothing else happens to damage the reputation of Florida State or of the ACC through the actions of Florida State.
Yeah, so I learned a term today, estoppel or estopped, right?
Mhm.
So we're all learning all these terms now. We're hoping we would never have to learn these terms, but now we have to know them. So that's what you're saying.
So
Is
the
that the term that was used in that part of the amendment?
The estoppel is actually a different avenue,
Okay.
different portion of what they're talking about. What they're saying with regards to estoppel is when you're trying to attack a contract, your behavior, your actions prevents you from taking certain actions. So in this case, what they're trying to say in the breach of contract action is that Florida State enriched themselves through the grant of right. Florida State has received monies in the past, and that in and of itself should stop Florida State from being able to argue that the contract's invalid. Now, the curious thing here is that we're talking about the future revenue of this contract. Right. So the use of the term estoppel really is, again, one of these examples of using a lot of words that don't mean a whole lot. Right. It's a misapplication of that. If I pay you $1 million to do X, and you take the $1 million and then you don't do X, that is an occasion where estoppel would come into play because you don't get to say, I don't want to do X. You've already received the money. In this case, right, we're talking about the grant of rights moving forward. So it doesn't really come into as a factor of whether or not Florida State has the right to challenge the grant of rights.
So if you thinking about that, so Florida State is not arguing about the money that's received in the past. It's arguing about their lack of ability to earn what they're worth in the future.
And that goes directly to the breach of the fiduciary duty claim. ACC has not kept up with the negotiations. They signed this long-term contract that locks us into a 4.5% annual escalation. That 4.5% escalation is nowhere near the increased value of this property over the last 10 years, and certainly not over the next 10 years when you compare that to the $3 billion contract that the ESPN just signed with the SEC.
So I get that. So, I know I heard you on the other shows. You were on Big 12 Mafia last night. You were on James Coleman earlier today. I know you've been on Double Fries No Slaw as well. And and I know you've probably gone over this, but explain to us, or let's start the explanation, because I know you read through all the words. You read through them all. What are the things that stood out to you? And I know you sent me some stuff here. And if you want, just call out which ones you want to pull up. I will do that.
Well, one of the things that came out early on in this amended filing is this discussion about jurisdiction and venue. So those first 2 pages, the ACC goes and tries to fill in some of their gaps on what was previously a very weak argument. Remember, as I said the first time we talked, typically you file suit where the defendant lives. Both plaintiffs in both of these complaints filed suit where the plaintiff resides. So one of the first fights and one of the first curiosities that's going to come from this litigation is, where should this court be held? So this case be held. The ACC did a much better job now of filling in some of those additional details, making the argument that Florida State has voluntarily assented to participating in this North Carolina contract by being part of a 501c3 organization registered in North Carolina. So they did try to amend their complaint to fill in some of those gaps regarding jurisdiction and venue. I just think at the end of the day, the strength of the argument for why this should be in Florida is still going to be superior.
Gotcha. And so that, is there anything specific in this article that is curious to you, or is it just standard legalese of them trying to strong arm the case to be in North Carolina?
It's pretty standard language, but some of the things that they were pointing out is all the leadership positions that the ACC meetings entailed, all of the Florida State participants in certain committees and in the meetings that were taking place. Of course, a lot of this happened during the COVID era. I'm sure most of those meetings were probably by Zoom. I doubt that they're requiring the commissioner or the president of Florida State to be in North Carolina once a month for these monthly meetings. So there's probably some more detail. And this is, again, where it's important to understand that you can allege whatever you want in these complaints. And the same goes for Florida State. Florida State can say whatever it wants in its complaint. The big question is, what will the facts prove after discovery when the evidence is presented to court? And so that's why whenever we're talking about this and I'm opining or trying to guess where this is going to go, it's all based on if these allegations are correct.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, I'm going to let you jump in because I've been doing all the talking.
No, this has been such great stuff, so I didn't want to interrupt. Do you believe this will inevitably lead to a Florida State amending their complaint?
I think that's possible. I think there are several things that could be filed at this point. FSU amending their complaint, both of the parties filing a motion to dismiss, saying that the court that is listening to the case doesn't have the right to listen to that. Both of them could ask that this be removed to federal court. So there are several things that could be filed while this is in this initial phase. One of the important dates that came out yesterday, the AP reported it, Chris Nee reported it for Knowles 247, was that both parties have also filed agreements, joint agreements, that answers will be due February 16th. So this posturing that's happening has to come before those answers get filed on February 16th coming up.
So that February 16th, is that, are we saying that the answers that are expected are the answers of the request for declaratory judgment of the complaints?
No, the answer is what the other party says in response to the complaint. So
okay, I got you.
ACC has filed their complaint in North Carolina. They've filed their amended complaint in North Carolina. Florida State will file an answer in North Carolina. Similarly, Florida State filed their suit in Florida. North Carolina or the ACC will have to file their answer in the Florida court.
Gotcha. So homework is due by the 16th.
Exactly. And in that answer, they basically say, nuh-uh. This is why all the things in the complaint aren't accurate, aren't correct. And we're going to get a much better picture of where these arguments lie because, again, there is an ethical obligation to be truthful. You'll see in some of these phrases where the lawyers start out the paragraph, upon information and belief. That's a cute way of saying we think. We think this is what the evidence is going to show. We think that the evidence is going to bear this out. And when you file your answer, you're likewise filing your answer of what you truly think is going to happen and what is going to be proven with these facts. So they're telling the judge, we believe A, they believe B. Now let's get into the discovery phase and we'll start hashing out through depositions, through document reviews as to which of these complaints actually have valid facts that can be verified.
Absolutely. No. I guess for everyone watching out there on YouTube, very few of us have law backgrounds. In basic layman's terms, amended complaint versus original, what is the ACC attempting to accomplish? What is the difference?
Well, what the ACC essentially has done now is they took the complaint filed by Florida State and they started to try to fill in the gaps of their original complaint that was pointed out. So the FSU complaint in Florida, as I said before in our last show, was much stronger than I expected, and it lays out why they think there was a breach of these duties, there was a breach of the contract, why Florida law doesn't support these substantial penalties that the ACC is trying to bring about. What's curious and what I see overall is, once again, the ACC argument is you sign this, 99 boo-boo, you have to uphold what you sign. And yes, that is a component of contract law, but they haven't really rejected all the assertions that Florida State has made. The
Yeah.
ACC has not come out yet and said, no, this really was the best deal possible. And these are the reasons why. Those are the types of details that the answer will at least start leading towards, or will at least start pointing towards when both parties file their answer. So that's what I'm curious about is what does the ACC say in response to these very serious allegations?
Do you think the ACC was surprised about the strength of FSU's suit?
That I can't necessarily say. I'm not in the room, obviously. I'm not
Yeah.
there. What I will say, and I told this to somebody else today offline, if I got the choice to pick which side I wanted to be on right now, I'd want to be on Florida State side on that legal team because I think that overall it's a more righteous fight. It's a more, let's be fair. I do believe in the fundamental fairness of the law. That's one of the things that I think the system works. News cycles, 24-hour news cycles, and the court of public opinion have done a great job of eroding confidence in the system. But overall, I think that the court system and the legal system works, and I think you're going to see that bear out in this scenario.
Excellent. I know I'm not probably going in order here, but is this, have we already talked through this one?
Truthfully, I don't have my glasses on and I can't read 1.5 point font. So
that's fantastic.
you'll have
it's on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This is speaking about member of the board of directors, the athletic director. Like the athletic director, members of all institutions serves on the football and basketball committees. To me, this maybe start talking about the reasons why Florida State shouldn't be allowed to participate as a member while this is going on.
If I remember correctly, this is the part of the complaint that was under the jurisdiction and venue heading. So the page just before that has the heading, and then the next section kind of fleshes out. There are like 10 different reasons or 12 different reasons why the ACC is alleging Florida State has enough contact with North Carolina. Florida State has enough participation with North Carolina. This is a North Carolina contract. So this is just the way that ACC is laying the groundwork to claim that this should be a North Carolina suit.
So not only it's nanny nanny boo boo, but it's also you're going to take it and like it, and you shouldn't complain. And we're also not going to let you participate.
Yeah,
as long as this is pending, and that's what I was really describing. Is this is a divorce? This is an ugly divorce. We know how this is going to end. Florida State is not going to stay in the ACC, even if we're a reluctant partner all the way through the end of our time with our current contract, the grant of rights going through 2036. There's not going to be a renewal of any relationship with Florida State and the ACC.
Yeah, Florida State knows they'll have to pay child support. They just don't know how much they should have to pay.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
And Florida State is not a deadbeat dad either. So, we'll see what happens when the actual dollars come out. This is another venue heading here. So we've already kind of gone through that. Prayer for relief, which I thought is a fantastic heading. Prayer for relief. And is this typically what it's called, this heading or this section?
This is what, after they've laid out their 43 pages worth of arguments and positions, this is where they're telling the judge what we're asking for. So these are the specific points. There's really, again, two separate things happening now in this grant of rights fight. The first thing is issue a declaratory judgment at the conclusion of this case that the grant of rights is valid and binding. And then the prayer for relief is during this pendency. This is where the injunctions are that I was talking about. We want to make sure that Florida State behaves. So this court, what they're asking is the court ultimately to issue an order, and these are the relief that they want the judge to provide in the order.
I just love the terminology, to be honest with you. There definitely, I think there's some prayers being said in Mecklenburg County and maybe in Winston-Salem and maybe in Syracuse and some other places as well. Let's see here. And these are all more of those things here about the injunction and things like that.
And that's really the important part of the injunctions. And one of the things that are coming from this amended complaint, one of the biggest reasons why the ACC is filing this amended complaint is they know that the other schools, the other members that are not happy, are looking at this. And so they want to be able to say, don't file suit because we're going to treat you the same way. It was different before when it was just like, hey, tell us whether the grant of rights is valid or not. Now the ACC is trying to put some teeth into this litigation so that even while the litigation is pending, Florida State can't be an active participant. That's what they want to scare the other members of the conference into believing so that they won't jump into this litigation fray as well.
So that would include like things like potentially adding other members. They don't want them to be involved or voted in that. They don't want them to be involved in renegotiated potential deals with ESPN or the ACC should that happen. So this is really what's funny. I laughed listening and reading all of this. It's really one party claiming, hey, you didn't negotiate in good faith. We want out. The other party saying, no, you're going to be stuck here, and now you're going to really hate your life.
Now you're going to be in timeout. Yeah, we're going to put you in
You're gonna be in
timeout.
timeout. So, and I've heard a couple people say this too, and I think you have just stated this and kind of backed this up, is this is really, in a way, a bully tactic against the other schools that may be wanting to get out as well. If they were starting to get any courage to jump into the fray, now they're going, well, maybe we shouldn't because we're going to get our hands slapped.
Look, at the end of the day, another reason why I wouldn't want to be on the ACC side of this is because, they have a very small hole to thread this needle. They need Florida State to be gone at some point with some penalty while not jeopardizing their existence. And if they come to too low of an agreement and it's public, 3 or 4 members will raise their hand and say, yeah, we want out too. Then either the ACC needs to accept that they're going to be a basketball only conference like the Big East was for many, many years, or they are just going to cease operations because financially it won't be a viable conference. So I posted on Twitter today, it's like the ACC is playing Russian roulette, but instead of having 1 bullet and 5 empty chambers, the ACC has 5 bullets and 1 empty chamber. And
That's
any
fantastic.
scenario that leads to both FSU leaving and the ACC surviving, I got to believe that's a very small window of opportunity when you look 10, 15, 20 years ahead.
And I think in order for that to happen, like for Florida State to leave, which is going to happen, and for the ACC to continue at least somewhat like it is now, they have to hope that whatever that settlement is not made public. Because if that dollar amount, whatever the settlement is, gets out there and it's something that a number of schools can make that hurdle, then they're going to have a real problem. Is there a possibility that settlement number does not get made public?
That's a question I've been trying to answer today because I think of all the questions that have come, that's the one I'm least prepared to answer. So I've been asking around a couple other lawyer friends on Twitter and doing some research because you have a conflict here, a conflict between 2 propositions. The first of which is, yes, the ACC wants this to be a private discussion, a private dispute, but you have 2 problems with that. The first is the sunshine laws of the state of Florida. As a government entity, Florida State Board of Trustees has every responsibility to disclose even their emails if they're asked about. Likewise, the ACC does have a responsibility to its existing members. To what extent do the bylaws and the Constitution require the ACC to disclose to its members what those negotiations are? Now, I think that's the less problematic of the 2 situations because the way I interpret the Constitution of the ACC and the bylaws, each member institution has a responsibility to have a successful member institution. The ACC has the autonomy to run the ACC how it sees fit, generally speaking. Now, any media rights that are addressing the institutions and their financial interests must be shared within those conversations with other presidents. But I think the ACC has the right to decide what litigation to advance, what settlements to reach, how much to accept in payouts. I think they can do that with autonomy, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain that's the case.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the other school, I mean, when Maryland left, that number was known. everybody knew what that was. So I can't imagine that the other schools are going to be okay with whatever the settlement is, them being in the dark about it. I mean, eventually they're going to get that money, right? They're going to split that money up.
Agreed. And that's, that goes without another question, just to dovetail into that issue. That's actually one of the saving opportunities for the ACC. If that number is high enough, 150 million, 120 million, and 2 or 3 other schools want to depart, well, now the ACC is going to have a war chest to weather the storm of the next 4 or 5 years until they can get their legs back under them and figure it out. So in some degrees, it helps them if there's 3 or 4 institutions that all want to leave, that all want to pay $200 million. Now, maybe Florida State's not on the hook for $500 million, but if you get 3 member institutions to pay $750 million, that's a lot of revenue to get you through the lean times as you're trying to figure out who your members are going to be going forward.
Yeah, at that point, they don't need ESPN to pony up more money. They can ride on those dollars for a while at least, till everything kind of settles out and they become, in my opinion, a conference of smaller private schools that focus on basketball and more G5 type football operations.
Yeah, they can focus on basketball with us right now, winning 5 in a row, but that's another conversation.
That's for later in the show.
Real quick, Doug, it's a pure speculative and opinion question here. Aside from the obvious answer of ACC would like to actually win completely, where Florida State's locked in and knows what they owe, what do you believe, just in your own opinion, and if you were in their shoes, would be their best case scenario aside from winning it, winning everything on it?
The neat thing about settlements is typically nobody is happy. Nobody is going to consider it truly a win. Whatever figure that Florida State is offering right now clearly isn't enough to make the ACC happy. So it needs to be more than that amount. But what the ACC is asking for clearly is more than Florida State wants to accept. So if I had a crystal ball, if I had to guess, if I was, placing a wager on kind of what is happening now and what's going to happen, I would be willing to bet that Florida State's probably at somewhere around the $80 million mark in terms of their offer right now. I would suspect that the ACC is probably holding firm at about 200 million. And ultimately there's going to be a settlement, and 150 to 160 million is a number that I could see being realistic as an agreement. Whether it can be paid or not, it's a different story. I'm not that level of booster membership, but I would think that's probably a number that's low enough that the ACC would accept and high enough that Florida State would probably reach for. And as far as the timing, some people have talked about the ACC dragging this out, and I don't think the ACC wants discovery. I don't think they want to drag this out. I would not be surprised if we have a resolution in terms of the amount and the timing before we kick off in Ireland.
I agree with you on that for sure. And for the exact reasons you say. I mean, and everybody has said it. There's some dirty laundry that's going to get aired. And the conference has already taken hit after hit after hit. Even though Florida State was snubbed, one of the reasons why they were snubbed was because of the conference we're in. So there's already, bad press about that. And then add into it all of this other stuff. The dirty laundry, I think they would rather just not go that route. And for Florida State too. I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff that Florida State would rather not get out in the open too. But yeah, I agree with you. I think August, I would be shocked if we weren't wrapping this up. And what I mean by that is we know the number and we have a year. Like Florida State will be in the Big Ten, or Florida State will be out of the ACC and in some other venue by 2026. And then later on, that venue will be, reported as being the Big Ten. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. Hey, and one thing I want to ask you, Doug, I find this really interesting. You hear so many opinions out there on both sides. What do you think the biggest misconception pick on either side that outside people are, you see it, you read or are making claims like that, about one side or the other. Pick either side you want. What's the biggest misconception out there about this case right now, would you say?
I'm happy that I've seen a lot of good stuff, and I'd like to think that's because myself and some other law Twitter attorneys are out there saying the good things and filling in the gaps. But one of the ones that seems to confuse people most is this idea of consideration and consideration in contracts. Consideration in a contract way does not mean I consider something like what they were, some people were suggesting. The consideration is the financial value that you get for the agreement that you exchange in that contract. So here, where that's seems to be most problematic, is this idea that in 2021, ACC unilaterally gave ESPN the right to determine whether or not it even wanted to broadcast 2027 through 2036. There was nothing in exchange given for that contract amendment. So an amendment was made in 2021 without consideration, and that's not calling the presidents or asking the presidents to consider whether or not they'd approve that. The ACC, as I understand it from the filings, subject to be proven differently in discovery, the ACC, without consulting the other members and without consulting the presidents, gave ESPN this unilateral right without receiving anything financially in return. So that concept of consideration has been the thing that seems to be confusing most people.
And then also subsequently giving them more time to make that decision, right? So I think that decision was supposed to have been made, and then they gave them more time to make that decision of whether they're going to continue the broadcast or not. So
I'm not sure about that. All
Yeah.
I know is what the current agreement is, which is by February of 2025,
25, okay.
ESPN has to exercise that option. They have an option on the contract.
So the consideration in that, let's just say hypothetically, a possible consideration for that would be in return for us being able to make the choice on whether we want to continue broadcasting, we are going to give the ACC $200 million just to have the ability to make that decision. Is that kind of the idea? There has to be some kind of equalizer or fairness to that ability to make that decision, correct?
That's exactly right. And it doesn't necessarily need to be direct monetary compensation.
Right.
For instance, my biggest beef with the contract is this brutally low 4.5% annual escalation. If ESPN had come in and said, look, in exchange for this option, we're going to bump you up from 4.5% to 5% every year, that is consideration. You're getting something more of value. So that's an example of a way that ESPN and ACC could have shown that they were acting in good faith, were acting on the best interest of their members, but instead the ACC just gave it away.
Yep. You're just going to take it. You're just going to take it. Because we have to have this media partner because we don't know how to aggressively market our conference and pull in schools that care about football, the moneymaker. So frustrating.
Absolutely.
Soon, though. Soon, my friends. Soon, my friends. But not soon enough.
Man, I guess I want your opinion on this. I know a lot of people were kind of guessing and making speculative comments that, a big reason why Norvell may have considered going to Alabama for a hot minute was that, hey, it's the SEC right away instead of having to wait a few years potentially to have to make a move to a major conference. Just your opinion on, do you think that for any coach out there that is a factor, or if you were a head coach in this league right now in Florida State's position, based on the facts of this case that you know them right now, would you feel comfortable enough to, I'm going to sign long-term because I think we'll be out soon enough?
I think several commentators have mentioned that, and I'm a believer that things have to make sense. And I absolutely believe that Mike is a competitor, and Coach Norvell wants to do whatever in his best interest. And hopefully for a long time, that also aligns with what's in Florida State's best interest. But when you hear about the contract negotiations and what was provided other than just the salary bump. It was very clear that what the university was saying is, we're committed to your vision. What you have laid out before us, returning us back to the glory days, we're on board. And I have no doubt that part of that was a conversation of the existential threat that exists staying in the ACC. So I'm sure that he got assurances. And look, assurances are not contracts, and even contracts can be broken. But I believe there's a meeting of the minds between Michael Alford, Coach Norvell, President McCullough, Stephen Ponder of the Boosters. I think all of them are in lockstep in agreeing that this is going to be painful. This litigation is not fun. People don't like to sue other people. It's not a pleasant way to make a living sometimes. But while there are hurdles ahead, the ultimate goal and the ultimate eye on the prize is making sure that we see this through to completion. So if Coach Norvell didn't believe that Florida State was serious and committed to this action, yeah, I believe that he would have found it more appealing to end up in Alabama and the SEC.
Yeah.
As much as a competitor as he is, if you don't have, if you're behind $40 million a year, it's tough to be competitive.
Mhm.
So you can only make that up for so long, and this is not the old days. So
look, I'll concede that Coach Norvell is 5 years removed from G5 and Memphis, and he's just now getting used to, playing in a major conference, the Power 5, that's now the Power 4. But he believes in himself, and he believes that there's nothing holding him back other than the environment and the environmental conditions. He's control the controllables. Well, one of the controllables is to get out of the ACC and get into the SEC, where there's a lot more money, and he chose to make the long-term commitment to Florida State.
And
yeah,
also,
and I'm happy he did. Ryan didn't think he was going to, but I did.
I mean, also in the long run, FSU's kind of showing their power. We learned recently that Florida State's income, a lot more money came in the door. About 20 million more came in the door year over year, which is great news, right? Because if you're fighting a legal battle and you're trying to join a new conference and you're trying to more attention for your NIL collective and everything, hey, it's a good sign that the program itself is very healthy, which I'm very happy to see.
Well, to go back to your point too about what misconceptions are out there, it's not related to the litigation, but there are so many people out there that don't understand business and don't understand the difference between debt and deficit. And when the article came out yesterday about how much debt Florida State was in and how much they lost, it's less, I think it's 11% of the budget is what I calculated roughly was the shortfall. And as a 10-figure business, having an 11% shortfall 1 year, especially on the heels of a $20 million surplus last year, that is very doable. In fact, some would argue that if you had put us in the playoffs, maybe we wouldn't have had that $2.5 million shortfall.
Sure.
So that's the reality situation. FSU is strong financially. Some of the exhibits that were included with the ACC filing include those Board of Trustees meetings, and President McCullough is talking about what a great job Stephen Ponder is doing, and the boosters bringing in record numbers of revenue and members. So the state of the union, if you want to call it that, is very strong at Florida State. They have all the resources that they need to make this move. But to that point in that Board of Trustees meeting, they're already bringing in $77 million last year. You can't ask the boosters to come up with another $30 million to offset the revenue gap. So yes, the boosters are going to continue to grow. Please go out and join the boosters in the battle's end. Send the Chiefs to every game. Fund that endowment. But at the end of the day, there's still the large boulder that needs to be made up in TV revenue, and it can't be done in the ACC.
If there's one thing this fan base will do, it will respond to a controversy or a slight. I'm proud of this. I'm proud of this group for that. And I know, Doug, you push it all the time too. Just like you said, join the boosters if you can, and they have all different kind of levels you can join at. Join the battle's end if you can.
The snub hurt me. The snub caused pain for our players, but that is a short-term pain that is going to be wiped out by the long-term strides and leaps and bounds that this program is going to take as a result of that snub. Yes, we could have played in the championship. Yes, we could have won a national title.
Yep.
I firmly believe that. I wouldn't say we would have, but we could have.
Could have, for sure.
We would have had 1,200 members of the Battle's End that, didn't put us in a position to steal all of Alabama's players from them. So instead, we now have over 5,000 members. We have a fired up alumni base, a booster organization, and that response is going to lay the groundwork for where the program goes over the next 10 years.
And it's been interesting to see a little bit of the public perception turnaround too. It's changed a little bit, that I've noticed, from, Florida State's whining to, maybe Florida State's got a point in all this. And so, and while I don't necessarily care about what other people are saying, it is nice to see some of those things, because for a while there, it was pile on the Knowles. And it was everybody come out fighting. It's Jon Snow with all the horses coming for him. That's what I felt like. So, but Doug, I know I know
I want one more.
Oh, you do? Okay.
One more question. We're gonna leave it on this, and this is take it as short as you want to go, because we could go a whole nother topic on this, but we won't. Give me your thoughts as a man of the law on the whole NCAA coming down on FSU and that situation. Just your brief. What's your top view of it?
At the end of the day, the NCAA is slow and ineffectual. And the bottom line is that, yes, it was improper for Atkins to give a ride. Yes, we probably should have known better. But the reality is that was the beginning of the NIL era. There were not any rules in place by the NCAA. The NCAA determined and intentionally didn't pass any new bylaws or any new rules regarding NIL. They knew for more than a year that states like Florida and others were passing these NIL laws, and they made the conscious choice not to provide any guardrails to this program. So they are entitled to come down on FSU. I think FSU is the first of many that are going to be going through this process. And ultimately, while the penalties sounded harsh, I think that was more about the NCAA trying to assert themselves as a viable governing body, because all of the suspensions were already served except for the 3 games suspension by Atkins starting next year. The loss of scholarships is a minimal punishment spread over 2 years. And in the age of NIL, who cares about loss of scholarship? You can just put people on NIL money. And
we
then
got off easy on that. I mean, really.
The best thing, and the reason why I think that this was ultimately a negotiated solution, is because they wanted to be able to put in their release, Coach Norvell didn't do anything wrong. The program didn't do anything wrong. There are restraints in place. This is something that the university is taking seriously. And now the NCAA, unfortunately, had a very easy job in their investigation, because they basically admitted to the violations. The question is going to be what happens next. If that ends up being the only outlier and nobody else gets hit, then that just reinforces the absurdity of Stan Wilcox and his desire to punish Florida State. But if that's the first of a dozen similar sanctions and penalties that come out, some might be even more forceful, then I think that's something that's going to be the NCAA's efforts to say, hey, we're here, we're staying, we're still involved, we're going to rein this in. The cat's out of the bag, the toothpaste is out of the bottle. I don't know how they fix this at this point.
We should count ourselves as lucky that it only affected Rising Spear. Other ones that could come after this with other schools could be around their main collectives on other school.
Yeah, tell the Battle's End that they need to disassociate for 3 years, and our program and recruiting implodes.
Yeah, and for those of you that weren't paying much attention to that, when that came down, that was for an event that happened 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's
for a player we didn't get.
How ineffectual.
What was Life Wallet up to 2 years ago? God only knows. Yeah.
Life Wallet. Yeah, I think it was more than $1. You could get it for more than $1 a share at that point.
Yeah.
Doug, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll see you on some other shows as well. Before you bolt out of here, let everybody know where they can find you, and also if you already know you're going to be on some more shows, let them know where they're going to see you there.
I believe I've got Danielle Kelly tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So I'm going to be on her show talking about this. And she's another lawyer, someone versed in law. So these questions are different. Every show I've been in has the same theme, but the questions are unique and are different. And we're exploring different topics because you all have different questions as the host. But our law firm is in Atlanta, and we're here to celebrate and support any Knowles that are in Georgia that find themselves in legal trouble. And just want you to know that we're your best friends on your worst day, and we also happen to be Knowles at the same time. So if you're arrested, get hurt at work, get hurt in a car wreck, then we'd love to help you out. I hope you never need me. You probably don't need me right now. So follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on whatever social media you use most often at Rohan Law PC, and just keep us in your back pocket for if and when you ever need us in the future.
Excellent. We will see you soon, and I'll be in contact. Thank you so much, Doug. As usual, you have broken this down so the common folk like us can understand what's going on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug.
That sounds good. Y'all take care, and we'll see you. Actually, there's another show tomorrow with Jen Santee. We're going to be doing that one, the Renegade podcast.
Renegade Report?
Renegade Report at 7 o'clock. I think that one's going to be live also. I'm not sure when DK is going to be, but Jen Santee is going to have me on tomorrow at 7 o'clock with the Renegade Report. So looking forward to spending Friday night with y'all as well.
Excellent. I'll be watching that as well. Thanks, Doug.
Well,
take care.
Oh, boy.
Man, that was something else, huh? And hey, Vince, real quick, I want to get to something that was at the beginning of the chat that I want to address because I thought it was funny.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
All right.
Yes. We got to address this because
Vince did not think Norvell was leaving.
For those of you watching, we haven't had a show since, how long ago does it seem that Norvell, well, all this was going down with the coach? It seems like weeks ago, right?
Yes.
This was literally last week.
Yep.
And so we haven't had a show since, so we haven't had a chance to talk through this. But yeah, if you remember, Timmy, if you were watching that show, which I guess you were, Ryan was 90% sure Coach Norvell was on his way out the door. And I think I gave my prediction as 70% he's going to stay. So I'm glad I was right. And I know Ryan's glad I was right as well.
I am. Yeah, I'm very happy. It ended up, I was sweating that whole day, that entire day. Terry mentioned that, Ryan must have been drinking that whole day. I wasn't because I was at work, but I was sweating.
Well, and we say all the time, and I don't know that we said this at the beginning of the show, but we don't have any inside info. We don't have any, well, we have a few contacts, but so Ryan and I are rarely going to break news. I'm going to say we're never going to break news. We're rarely going to break news. We're going to discuss it at an intelligent level and give all of the viewers a chance to discuss it too. Ryan was not trying to break the news that Norvell was leaving. But I did get a couple weepy messages that morning from Ryan, really worried about it. I tried to calm him down.
And hey, thank you, Jim. Jim did a super chat for $10. Thank you so much, because I do want to say these super chats is what keeps us able to operate and to do our shows and to look for bigger and brighter things for our channel and for all of you. So thank you, Jim, for supporting us. You're awesome. All of you can also super chat. The feature is available to everyone. What it does for you is it allows us to actually read and discuss your comment in detail and not just quick shout outs like that. But Jim is the king of being generous and only putting a comment without asking any specific questions. So thank you, Jim. He says, he writes, I don't know about you guys, but I believe Saban will inadvertently pass the torch to Norvell. I think he's referring to all the transfers, Alabama junior here coming on.
Yeah, I think he's right about this. I think he inadvertently passed the torch. You think about how that all went down. Had Alabama not gotten the gift of making it to the playoff without having earned it, they would have, maybe Saban retires a little sooner, and maybe they have a chance to keep their class intact and keep some players from, bolting. But that's not what happened. They got the gift of going to the playoff, the pageant, and then you see what happens. So if you're on social media, you've witnessed this, Ryan. I know you have. I think Alabama fans in general had no idea what was going on in the real college football world until this past week.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. The whole week was fun. It's been fun, and we needed some fun. First Norvell stays, and then it's like portal announcement, portal announcement, portal announcement, recruit decommitment, recruit committing to us. It's been really great, and my brother-in-law is a huge Alabama fan, and I've been enjoying sharing each and every one of the transfers. Vince, you have a little graphic for us that can kind of emphasize this point.
Yeah, I'll pull this up. This is from Knowles 247. This is their this is the transfer list, right? And if you're looking at this, you're noticing a lot of Alabama, a lot of folks from Alabama making the trek from Tuscaloosa to Tallahassee, which is a great thing. And because Alabama didn't recruit scrubs, right?
They don't want no scrubs.
No, I mean, these guys, and they may not have been starters, but remember, Alabama's has been kind of doing what Florida State was doing in the 90s. Like, you didn't come to Florida State as a freshman and expect to play significant snaps. You had to wait your turn unless you were a generational talent of some kind. Alabama's been living that Florida State dream for a while. But I have no doubt that every one of these transfers are going to be significant contributors. Whether they're superstars or not, I don't know. But significant contributors is probably the floor.
We got a linebacker, Vince.
We did, and he's the only one, according to this, that's not currently enrolled. All the other ones have enrolled, so he's probably just doing his paperwork to start the classes, because he was the last one. I think, was that on Saturday that came through, or maybe Sunday? And I don't think it's over yet, Ryan. There's some more. There's some more transfers from Bama
this weekend
that are possible. I know their freshman All-American offensive tackle is in the portal. I don't know what the chances are of getting him, but currently the pipe from Tuscaloosa to Tally is free flowing.
Hey, Vince, my favorite thing to do on a random weekday when nothing really is going on is to get a 4-star composite quarterback to sign with your school as a walk-on. That's my favorite thing to happen.
So, yeah. So,
Trevor,
you get a 3 or composite 4-star quarterback that turns down offers at other schools, actual scholarship offers, to walk on at Florida State. What walk on means you don't get a scholarship. And why can that happen nowadays? NIL.
mm-hmm.
NIL is the reason why that can happen.
Yeah.
And so look at that. That's awesome.
Because a lot of people don't realize that, like, especially I looked into this player, good student. A lot of these kids can already have scholarships, financial scholarships for their academics.
Right. Yeah.
And then you pair that with the NIL money, and it's like, who cares about the scholarship? It's fine.
This quarterback, by the way, participated in the Elite 11, which is the premier quarterback camp / competition that takes place every year. They invite the top 11 quarterbacks in the country to go to this camp and work out and do these challenges and skills. And he actually won one of the skills. So if you're thinking like I am, Florida State currently has 2 Elite 11 quarterbacks from the same year on their roster. 2 of them.
It's amazing. It's a lot better than Alex Hornibrook out of the portal,
Or it's it's a lot better than Florida State going for recruiting class after recruiting class, but not getting a quarterback at all. If you remember those days.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
That wasn't that long ago.
Mackenzie Milton,
So if you have Bama friends, and I know we all do, and because everybody loves a front runner, right?
That's exactly right.
So we all have those friends, and there are legitimate people that went to Bama for sure. Yeah. So I'm not saying all Bama fans are front runners. That's not what I'm saying. But we all have some. They're going through a time right now. It's like their world has been shattered. The transfer portal to them has only given good gifts until this year. Now the transfer portal taketh away. And so they're going through some stuff now. So,
Yeah.
if you can find it in your heart to console them, and if not, go ahead and troll them a little bit. Both of those things work out pretty well.
Vince, I will say, I think a little bit ago I got a quick error with the comment section. If it's back working again and you're watching, drop a comment in the comment section on YouTube. Just let us know if the comment section is functioning again. Not sure what happened there. It could be just a YouTube,
A blip in the radar.
blip in the radar. But if you're watching this live, comment in the YouTube channel and just let us know if it's working again. There we go.
Looking through the
Jim,
comments
thank you.
right now. There we go.
Jim,
Test
thank you.
from Jim always comes through. Let's see. I have to put this one up here because this is true. Timmy says before Saban, Alabama was irrelevant. I think they're going back to that. I don't know about irrelevant, but for a lot of the younger college football fans out there, maybe all they've known is Alabama being what they are. But for those of us that are a little bit older, the Garnet and Old part, Alabama was a whole lot of nothing for a long, long time.
Hell, I remember Nick Saban's first year, one Bobby Bowden beating Nick Saban in Jacksonville.
That is correct.
Xavier Lee with the win. The X-Man.
Yeah, so any word on a safety in the portal that we might get, Ryan? Have you been following that?
There is some smoke, but again, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. So I don't want to make a definitive statement. All I can say is that if you follow one of the many recruiting services and portal trackers out there, there's and in general, there are a ton of names out there. The portal and the modern NIL deal for high school students has completely changed it for everyone. And there are so many names, so many reports, so many crystal balls that my head spins. And so at this point, I wait until someone is definitively, making a commitment, and then we talk about it. Like Vince said earlier, not one for breaking news, we're one to report it when it happens.
And really talk about the fun of it all, because the portal. I mean, if you looked at, or if you asked anybody in December what we anticipated Florida State's portal work to be this season, just about everybody would say 5 to 8 in the portal. We're already up to 14. So that goes to show you that things can change, because not only are people coming in, but because people are coming in, people are going to be leaving. And so it's, first of all, I will agree that we got to fix the portal a little bit, right? Because coaches have to know what their roster is. You have to have some kind of stability in the roster. And right now, I don't know how they do it. That's why they get paid the big dollars. And some of them get paid over $10 million.
They do. And Raj, I do want to, who is a Miami fan and a friend of the show, congratulations on getting Cam Ward. It sounds like Cam looked out in the NFL and maybe didn't hear what he liked to hear from where he was going to go standpoint and changed his mind. But listen, hey, I'm happy for the kid, for Cam. Clearly, he made the best decision for himself and for his family and everything. So no hard feelings there. I can't wait to beat him with DJ this year.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good example of just the constant carousel of the portal, because 2 weeks ago, Cam Ward declared that he was going to the NFL. And then, nope, changed my mind. I'm going to 180, snip, snap, and I'm going to Miami now. And everybody heard the rumors of the dollars there. I think it was a significant amount of money.
Vince,
so good for him.
I want to talk about something really, really positive aside from the portal, because the portal is a lot of fun, and we talk about the portal every week. But what I want to talk about right now is something that we didn't expect. At least I didn't. Now I've been kind of not so blue sky about things recently, and I've been proven wrong. Well, if you could not have been a blue skyer 3 weeks ago when it comes to FSU basketball.
No, I mean,
I mean, I couldn't
I
have predicted this.
if you go back and listen to our shows from late November, I think we both verbally stated out loud that Garnet and Old will continue our show every week, just like we always do, with some occasional shows, additional here and there. And we're going to talk about basketball. And I think I said the words, there may not be a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But look at where we are. Ryan, get everybody up to speed.
Well, so I actually did a one-off show like 2 weeks ago when they had a huge win. I was just it was a weekend, so I was just wanting to hop on and talk to all of you. But then last night now, beating Miami. What a great game! And Vince, I saw a tweet today. What do you call the player that transferred? Remind me the name to Miami.
Matthew
Matthew
Cleveland.
Cleveland. As I saw a friend of the show, not necessarily a friend of the show, but we follow 247 like everyone else does, and Brandon and other people on the beat. And someone wrote, Matthew Cleveland heading into the game, thousand points, right? And then one of our people that we follow put, and after the game, 1,002. And so
Right.
it was a struggle for Mr. Cleveland, which I don't wish anything bad on him. It was just ironic that during a game in which I am positive he wanted to play well, he did not.
No, he did not play well. And of course, everybody reposted the photo of him doing the downward U from last year when he beat Miami on a buzzer beater, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one when you lose. Hey, Miami was a Final Four team last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Miami, I think at one point this season was in the top 8.
Yeah.
And it's not going well for them right now. And I don't know. I don't follow their team enough to know specifically what's wrong with the team. But they're trending downward. Florida State is trending up. And I think that is maybe 5 wins over Miami in a row, I believe.
Yeah.
But as far as like the basketball team is concerned, I'm just looking through their list here. So they lost to Lipscomb. This basketball team lost to Lipscomb on December 30th.
That's a toughie.
That will hurt your feelings, brother.
I don't even know where that is.
No. So it's been a turnaround for sure. And I don't know what the end result of the season is. I mean, because the team is not they're not an elite collection of talent. They may be playing better as a collective unit than individually, right?
Yep.
So if that keeps up, I mean, they're 5-1 in the conference, man, and that is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
And then the women's team, currently ranked, they are 14-4 and also 5-1 in the conference. The wife and I are heading over to Tallahassee this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to go over on Sunday to watch the women play and watch our daughter perform with the Seminole Sound, which is the band that plays at the basketball game. So,
Vince, I imagine
we'll
as a parent of a chief, it's probably a little bit more intimate and a lot more fun, because the way basketball is, you can be like right near your daughter as she plays at the basketball stadium, and it's like she's right there. Whereas the football, it's a little bit more detached.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, and there's less people in the band, right? So you can focus in. And actually, just the other day when we were watching the game on TV, I don't think it was on the CW. I think it was on a real channel. But they panned into the band a few times. We got to see the daughter on the big screen.
Yeah.
And as a dad, you know,
Yeah, it hits you
love
hard.
it. Love
Vince,
it, love it, love it.
I have an exciting announcement for everyone. I know you already know this, Vince, but we haven't talked about it. Next week, if everything goes to plan, we should have an all new, let's say, graphics overhaul when it comes to our graphics, our logos, everything. And I want to give a shout out to the artists that will be doing all of our art and graphics coming up. His name is Dagan Moriarty. And for those of you who are not aware, he is the brother of Colin Moriarty of Last Stand Media. They do a video, it's the #1 Patreon in the world for video games, Vince, ranked #1 in all of Patreon. Something like over like thousands of subscribers in Patreon. And he is doing our art, and I'm super thrilled. I've kept in touch with him, been messaging him all week, and so we're gonna have a little meeting, and then we're gonna get the graphics, and we're gonna have that. So if any of you here watching this channel, which some of you might also be video game fans or PlayStation fans, any of the podcast services or on Patreon, Last Stand Media. He is one of the hosts of Sacred Symbols, Knockback, and a couple of other shows that are the #1 show on Patreon, and he has done all the artwork and logos for that entire channel. So if you want to see some of his work, check him out.
So first thing on that, Ryan. So you're saying you do have a contact.
I do have a contact, yes, and
fantastic. I just want to make sure I got that out there. So occasionally we do have a contact,
and he ain't
but
cheap.
Also, and nobody that's good at anything should be cheap. Good at anything should be cheap. Creatives, especially, you know, we should pay people what they're worth. But if you're looking at our logos and you're going, man, your logos look like a 5th grader did it, you're wrong. It was done by Ryan and myself, although our skills could probably be equated at a 5th grade level. But it got us through the first few years of the show, and it's time, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we are trying to take this thing to another level. And one of the things we needed to do is kind of a rebrand to get us a little more professional looking. So I'm super excited about that. Ryan's been heading that part of the project up, and Ryan, I appreciate your effort on that. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
And really important for all of you, the 1,000 subscriber thing. If you're, please like and subscribe this and share it with your friends, because things like artwork paid for by an artist, hosting, live events, all these things cost money, and we love doing it. We knew going into this, Vince, we knew 3 years ago, 2 years ago, last year, we knew that to get it off the ground, to do it right, to have equipment, cameras, lighting, the whole 9 yards, that you have to spend money, right? You can't do it on the cheap.
Scared money don't make money.
Scared money don't make money. And we have put a lot of time, blood, sweat, tears, and effort and money into this channel. And so I just want to thank you, each and every one of you that watch us, have liked, have subscribed. That's awesome. The super chats, awesome, because literally you are directly, it's almost like you're like a producer for our show or a backer. You are helping us being able to afford, new art, new shows, potentially new hosts in the future, things like that. So thank you for everyone that gives and everyone that helps and everyone that subscribes. It helps us get there.
When you're looking on X, when you're looking on Facebook, Ryan and I are on both of those. We haven't really gotten the Instagram thing going yet, but we are going to do that. But go ahead, you see our ats there scrolling across the bottom. Do us a favor. I've seen a lot of this, by the way, in the Twitter space in the last 2 weeks. There are just Noel fans just like, hey, follow me and I'll follow you. And I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers or whatever. I don't know if I should do that or not, but everybody follow. It helps us out, and we'll follow you back, of course. And then YouTube, like we've already been saying, we're trying to get to 1,000. I think once we hit the 1,000 mark, exponentially things will start to happen. Ryan and I are not trying to make millions off of this. We're not trying to retire off this. We just enjoy
talking
about the Knowles. we're trying to make ones. We just enjoy talking about the Knowles and trolling some of our fans from other bases. Never do follow for follow, Jim Unir says.
Yeah, you know
Yeah,
what it is, Vince. It's for those of you that don't know, I worked 10 years at Holy Poultry or Chick-fil-A, as many of you know. Um, and if you ever realize that Chick-fil-A doesn't do a lot of coupons, and in some of the leadership conferences I went to at Chick-fil-A, they said the companies that do coupons, all that happens is they have to keep doing coupons because people will only come if there's a coupon at that point. And so you are essentially reproducing people who only want to have a discount and only pay a partial amount.
I
Chick-fil-A
get that.
says, make the product good, no coupons required.
Absolutely. And if you have any suggestions, speaking of making the product good, if you have any suggestions for the show here, feel free to reach out to Ryan and I on X, on Facebook, on
One thing I've been
Twitter,
thinking
on
about, Vince, going into
emails,
next
whatever.
season, not now, going into next year, especially, and Vince is going to talk about the season opener. Would you all like to see some form of call-in show after a game?
We have the technology. We can do it.
We have the technology. We can do it. Now, there's some things that we have to get accomplished, some things we have to pay for. But would you all be interested in a live call-in show post game? If so, comment and let us know in the video. We want to see how interested people would be and not just do it for the sake of doing it.
We have to have a call screener. That's the only thing I'll say about that. Season opener. I have very little to say about this, except that the email came out this week, finally, about tickets
Mm-hmm.
and not about buying the whole package, right? With the flight and the hotel and all. It's strictly about the tickets. The tickets are $245 a piece. And so Shannon and I, my wife, Shannon and I were talking the last few days. We are finalizing our plan to be in Dublin for the season opener. I want to know in the comments if you're planning on going or if you're kind of planning on going, because what I would really love to happen. Think about this. Dream with me, Ryan.
I'm dreaming.
Garnet and Old, live from Dublin, with a little bit of a smaller tailgate kind of thing going on, with Garnet and Old viewers and subscribers in the fray, live from halfway around the world.
I would love that. And I would also love people to send Vince ideas for signs he could bring to game day.
That's true too.
Yeah.
Because Kirk will be there, I'm sure. But
Yes.
the old part of Garnet and Old is leaning heavily 90% to Dublin. Ryan, I think you're not, unless something has changed in your life.
It has not. I will be reporting live on the ground here in Tampa, Florida. But I may go to the Tampa Knowles watch party for it, which there
Beautiful.
will be one.
So let us know if you're planning on going to the season opener. And the more we see people are going to be doing that, the more I get a little bit of energy to maybe put a little get together.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight. Thank you, Doug, for Rohan Law
Mhm.
for coming on. He's been on so many shows, and we thank him. Hey, again, help us get us to 1,000 subscribers. If you know anyone who's a Florida State fan, even if you see their computer left open and they went to the bathroom, just hop on YouTube and subscribe on their behalf, like I do all the time when my employees go to the restroom at work.
They do not follow the security awareness protocols at the office. So instead of doing a prank on them, just subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, although I do like putting a Windows Update YouTube video in full screen.
This has been great. Thanks, Ryan. And if anything crazy happens before next Thursday's show, Ryan and I will pop on with a last minute live show.
Thanks everyone for watching. Garnet and Old, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. Send the Chiefs all the damn time. Vince, have a great night. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Go Knowles.
Go Knowles.